We also want to talk about just how water is used to develop these resource plays, and we think one of the key people, the person with maybe the most knowledge of anybody sitting around this table, is right here, Mark Whitley, who's been involved with this for so long.
Thanks, Bill. I would say that water is the key to these new resource plays because it has turned out to be the economically viable fracturing fluid that we can use. If you look at gas fields in general, water's always been used to some extent for the fracturing process, which allows the gas to migrate to the well, which then becomes the gas that you use in your home or in the factory down the street from you. But the thing that's changed in the resource plays is now we don't have really any production without fracturing. But without really water fracturing technology that we have today, we wouldn't have the field the size of the Barnett that it is here in 2007. And if you look back 10 years ago, it's grown significantly, and the reason for that is because we've been able to apply this technology, water fracking, if you will, to a rock that would not give up as much gas if we used other techniques which have been tried in the past. So water is the key to making this resource play work, as well as I think will be applicable to others down the road.
Dr. Mace, did your study show where the water is coming from?
Well, up in the Fort Worth area, a lot of the water is coming from groundwater, and then there's also water coming from surface water. And our study suggested that about 60% of the water is coming from groundwater aquifers, and the rest is coming from surface water. On the groundwater side of the equation, that groundwater is coming from an aquifer we know as the Trinity Aquifer.
If you're in Dallas County, 99% of your water is coming from the surface. If you're in a more rural county, it might be 85% is coming from underground in wells.
Well, what we found in our study is that about 7,200 acre-feet per year are being used currently. And acre-feet might be an alien concept or a different term than folks are used to. That represents, 1 acre-foot represents 326,000 gallons of water.
Is that significant?
For the total area, and when I say the total area, it's basically the area that's in the Barnett Shale play, which includes Dallas, Fort Worth. There's about 1.3 million acre-feet of water used. So when you compare 7,200 acre-feet of water to 1.3 million acre-feet of water, doesn't appear to be a lot of water. It's less than 1% of the total usage.
That doesn't sound like much, but I guess maybe it creeps up when you get into the rural counties?
It could in localized areas, certainly could, but I think it creeps from the 1% to the 3%. I don't think it creeps more than that.
Okay, we're off to a good start with the first portion of our program, and we'll be back to you in just a moment. Welcome back to World Energy Television's look at the new resource plays. So what about the ownership of this water? It's a natural resource. There's a lot of legal issues around that, I think, Pete. Who owns the water, and can you be forced to give it up?
Generally, the surface owner will own the rights to the water. It's very common here in North Texas for the mineral rights to be severed from the surface estate. And so we have a lot of conflicts between surface owners and mineral interest owners. However, the mineral interest owner, the lessee or its lessee, has the right to use that water as reasonably necessary to develop the minerals and to produce those minerals.
Do most people really understand this? And I would think that this is something that just causes all kinds of uproar.
Well, sure. It's very similar to other issues of entering upon the property, and a surface owner is surprised generally to learn that the operator can use the water, can access the land, can choose a location for a drill site. And so there are a lot of disputes that erupt early because of kind of the education process. And it's good when operators also, on the other hand, can foresee that and go in advance and discuss what their plans are. to use the surface and to use water for that.
Pete, there are a lot of good opportunities for partnership when it comes to the things you're talking about. For example, when an operator goes on to a piece of property, working in partnership with that landowner, there's an opportunity to build a tank, to then put water in that leaves something for that landowner that he appreciates when we're gone.
Most of the companies, XTO, as Lindsey's with, they do really try to work with them, but not all the companies do. And even the good companies that do that, their subs don't always do that. One guy called me up as his lawyer one time. He called up and he was in a panic. He owned about a 7-acre lake, but this was a very special lake. He had put $25,000 into just stocking it with these special exotic fish. He had a 30-foot tall walking bridge going over the top of it, ducks. It's a golf course looking pond, and he had a lot of pride in it. There was a little nipple of it, a little piece of it that drifted out on to a neighbor's property. Well, a gas producer came and tried to negotiate with him to pay him a reasonable price for that water, but he didn't want to see his fish sucked in the pump, and he didn't want to see it taken down as low as it would have. And so he refused the deal. Well, then he calls me in a panic because there's all of a sudden on the neighbor's property with whom they'd cut a deal, there's a big hose leading down from a 50 horsepower pump that is about to suck all of his water off of his property from this little nipple that's sticking onto the adjoining property. We had to run down and get a quick injunction because even though I called and talked to the president of this company, he would not back away from that. He said it's all right and we can do it.
Has it been difficult to educate citizens about the various issues?
Well, we believe that the communication process is a very important process, especially when you are dealing with something like this that many are not familiar with. And again, we applaud the community as well as those that are drilling for the steps that they're taking to put together this partnership that we believe will help educate and inform the general public about the process of drilling in an urban environment like this.
Yeah, I think that the city of Fort Worth has certainly, they've stepped up to take more of a leadership role in trying to educate their general public, if you will. And in fact, we just participated as a sponsor, and XTO was a major sponsor of a Barnett Shale Expo a couple of weeks ago there in Fort Worth, and it was widely attended by just everyday people coming in, didn't have a clue why this guy was knocking on his door and talking about a lease and what is a lease and what are you going to do when you get there and what all is going to be on my land. And so it was a general participation by not only the operators but many of the service companies that are involved in North Texas, that being drilling companies and companies that provide fracturing services and all down the whole gamut.
And I want to say my hat's off to the Fort Worth Chamber of Commerce and Bill Thornton. You guys have done a super job. The expo that Mark was talking about was phenomenal. It really was. It was created as an outreach to the community, done with a decent job of advertising. But I can tell you we were absolutely overwhelmed by the public's response. And one thing that was really interesting about it, I stood in a company booth for about 8 hours and talked to more people than I could count. And not one person came to us with a negative comment. I'll be honest with you, I anticipated the comment of, there's a rig too close to my home, what can we do about that?